Hi guys, this is Dustin Carr with the Basketball MC. We're coming to you with another exciting uh, presentation. This one's going to be talking about defense. I'm excited about this personally. A lot of this has been offensive and different things. This is a unique and different thing from a really sharp coach. So we're excited how a pandemic like this can bring unique opportunities. So with bad comes some really good things. So without further ado, I'll introduce Coach Renat. He's runs Be Unlimited. He's a coach from Kazakhstan. He's a performance and player development coach. So without further ado, Coach, thank you so much for coming and taking this time. And then, guys, as always on these, if you have any questions or answers or questions, please feel free to fill them out, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can at the end of the presentation. Coach, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dustin. Hey guys, thank you so much for this opportunity. I've been following your previous events, and this has been amazing for all of us. And we learn so much. We improve, we develop ourselves, so we can do the player development even better. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and go from there with my presentation. Okay, so today we're going to talk about on-ball defense. We're going to talk about individual defense, and I believe that this is something that really going to separate the players. It was something that separated players before, and now and in the future, it's something that not many of the players willing to do, and then whoever does put their time and effort into it they're gonna be ahead of the rest of the players. So we're gonna start. I'm going to share my experience quickly. My name is Renat, and I'm a player development and performance coach out of Kazakhstan, which is in Central Asia. Used to be part of USSR. I've spent some time in the United States while I was studying there. That's where my first experience happened with basketball coaching. And since I was always in the gym, I decided to also pursue strength and conditioning to understand how the body works, so I can mix all of that together and deliver the explanation and teaching and coaching on an even higher level. So I've been doing that since 2009, and I have worked and had different experiences in the United States, Russia, and my home country, obviously, Kazakhstan. I started as an assistant to John Lucas in Houston, where now he works with. He's been working with Houston Rockets as one of the player development coaches, but he's been running his camps and different events, and also private workouts for the pro players, for NCAA players, NBA players, and players who also played in Europe, overseas. So I assisted him with those guys, and that's where I really dived into this whole skill development and started realizing that that's something that I would love to do. As a fan of basketball, I've tried playing basketball myself. I had a relatively short career, so I'm not going to go into that. And after that, I worked for a VTB League team, Krasny Krylia, out of Samara, Russia. So that team doesn't exist anymore, but it used to be there. So we won the Russian Cup, and that team was pretty successful with a few foreigners every year. And I've worked with that team for 3 years. And after that, while I was in Russia, obviously I started running professional preseason camps for professional players, where I would, get a few players in the summer and prepare them as far as their strength and conditioning, skill work. And I was doing it for 4 summers in a row. And since then, I prefer to work more individually with VTB and Russian Super League players. That's in the highest demand, so I shifted into that. And I also run my company Be Unlimited, and I have my performance center that is called Be Unlimited. And I also run basketball camps for kids and youth players that is also called Be Unlimited Basketball. So we're gonna jump right into the defense. And so the features of the great on-ball defense, in my opinion, you got to be tough. First of all, that's something that we probably cannot teach. We can probably push our players and direct them in the way that they will really understand what is being tough, and that is not always being physically tough. I mean, even though you have to be physically tough, but a lot of times the strongest guy as far as the squat or bench press might not be the toughest on the court. So that's the very important feature, and I think that that's probably the feature that can take you the farthest as far as developing your defense if you're being tough, because that's probably the quality that there are plenty of good defenders, but some of them not tough enough, in my opinion. Obviously, you have to be in a great physical shape. Being on defense on time, and being present on defense, and being there to help your teammates, and really affecting the game of opponents. It's all good. It's all good tactics. It's beneficial, but you got to be able to do that for long enough. I mean, when it's a fourth quarter, when it's a last minute, you got to be ready to deliver and do the same thing at the crucial moments. So you got to be in a great shape. You got to study. You got to study great defenders. You got to study their habits. You got to study opponents. You got to study. Tendencies. The team basketball. You got to study the team defense and team offense. You got to understand everything. So, but not only that, you have to really prepare. So what I mean by that is you can study all you want. You can watch the video, you can watch the breakdown, you can read the literature and then say, yeah, I understand that. But then you got to prepare for each individual task. For example, for this particular opponent, for this particular team, you got to learn and develop this habit of preparation, proper preparation, because you cannot remember everything. So you have to pick the right amount of information that will be applicable to this particular situation. And then obviously you have to apply this. I mean, it's worth nothing if you just talk about it, if you just read about it and you don't apply it. So then a very good important feature, you got to know how to help each teammate. What I mean by that is, your on-ball defense, has to come to the point where you affect the offense, or you affect the player with the ball and make them change their decision, or if you stop them, for example, you have deflection. But at the same time, we use this tactics when we direct the players a certain way, and we direct the player to our partners, and we got to know how that's going to affect our opponent, our player that we're guarding. And then also on top of that, if one of your partners on the team is not very good on defense, you got to know their weak spots. And then if you know their weak spot, and for example if they struggle with for example lateral movement, and then you see them getting beat, and they late going laterally, then if you one pass away, maybe you can react a little sooner and maybe have a right stunt at the right time, or maybe even switch. And maybe that will cause earlier rotation, because you will start a little earlier because you predicted that. So you're definitely going to become a better defender when you know your teammates and how good they are on defense. It's very important. You cannot really rely the whole defense on yourself. And if your teammates lack great defensive skills, then you gotta help them as well by you playing great defense. You got to learn how to defend different positions. That's very important. I mean, as a development coach, when we work with the players, for example, if I work with the guards, a lot of times I involve them in a post play. I involve them in bumping and grinding down low in the post. And not only that, I also explain how to defend there, because a lot of times there's a switch, there's a mismatch, and you're going to be taken down low. You got to be ready for that. And it's not only about your desire and willingness to play defense down low, for example, for the guard. It's also understanding the physique, understanding your body, understanding the contact there. And I mean, obviously you're going to have a disadvantage, but if you learn and you know all these little details, you maximize your chance of performing way better during the mismatches, for example. And also you got to be ready to enjoy and really pat yourself on the back after small victories, because I mean your defense is not going to be perfect. If you're a great defender, it's not that you always stop the opponent. It's not that you always steal the ball. It's not that you always, block the shot. It's a deflection here and there. It's proper rotation. It's just making your opponent uncomfortable and make them change decision and make them maybe lose their confidence or affect their confidence. All those small victories will definitely help you, and they really matter when we discuss great defense. And they all come together, and you gotta combine them in order to describe your defense, your level of defense. Are you doing all these little things? Are they always present in your game, or you only do them whenever you have, when you're in a good mood? You really gotta focus on that. And also, one of the features that I think it's kind of probably the hardest to teach, or maybe one of the hardest to teach, is to have active hands while running different ways. What I mean by that is, we get used to this ideal, like basic defensive position where we know how to shadow the ball, how to try to, strip the ball and stuff like that. But, whenever we're running, a lot of times we only and solely focus on our low body. We would want to make sure that our legs moving properly, we have proper foot position, proper body position. But great defenders, they have active hands, and they can still touch the ball, slap the ball out of the hands, have a deflection or something like that. Even when they get pushed, or they get bit and like they get crossed over, they still reach at the right moment, and they still can affect the play. So I think that's one of the things that probably links to the reaction and agility of the player and their coordination. But still, we definitely have to train that. We have to train not giving up on the play, not staying active even if you lose your position and stuff like that. But we have to explain this to the players, because a lot of times we cannot really affect that if it's since we know it might be linked to something that we're born with or given with early on, I mean, while we kids, and we develop. So for the older players, we probably just want to explain that so they will understand this concept, and maybe just by being focused and being really concerned about this, they will be able to add this feature into their defense. So I suggest to study simple things that will help you become the great defensive player. And also, as a coach, you do this, you give this as a homework to your players. So, or you can explain it to them and do it instead of them if you know how to do scouting, or you can do it all together. Have a part of it as a homework, and some of it to be explained as a part of the scouting report. So you got to study the tendencies of an opponent on offense and defense. So we're talking about we playing defense, and they're attacking us. They're in offense, but you still got to know their defensive tendencies. So, for example, it's easy to understand offensive tendency when we talk about, okay, this guy, this player, before he shoots, he likes to go, from right to left between the legs, and then into the hesitation move, and then into the pull-up, for example. We know that tendency. We know if he does that, what we got to do. We know he's going to shoot. We got to send him to the basket, for example. But then their tendencies on defense. Why it's important? Because that's probably their weak link, okay? If we think about it, if there's a player who doesn't like to play defense, or they lack some components of defense in a particular way, for example, like this lateral quickness, or maybe if you go and you make a sudden stop and change of speed, maybe that will affect them even more. Then, you're going to be on offense regardless, right? And then if you make them work and you really make them tired while they're on defense, especially by attacking their weakest links or weak links, then trust me, their offense is going to struggle more against your better defense. So it's not only about, you just, doing your best on defense. You're going to be on offense regardless, and you have to attack, you have to be aggressive and stuff like that. So you better study defensive tendencies of your opponent as well. You got to know the place. You got to know the place of your team. You got to know the place of the opponent team. That's it literally says what it says. So you got to know what is going to develop in this particular play when this opposing team is attacking you. That way you'll be able to predict. That way you'll be able to cut them off their options earlier, and you might just stop their development of the play if you know what's going to happen. You also have to know the habits and the go-to moves of the particular players. The habits, it's not only about like I was talking about tendencies earlier. It's not about like actual skills or skill set or moves or anything they do with the ball. The habit can be, the player is, for example, they every time there's a situation, there's no call or something, they usually refer to the ref, or they like to talk to their like partners at the wrong moments of the game. They like to be overactive and stuff like that. All these little things can be used against them. And also the go-to move, obviously, if you study your opponents, you will find just few go-to moves. We usually say, I mean, they're very talented players. They might have few of them, but usually it's 1, 2, or 3 go-to moves that they use in different situations. Like, for example, on the perimeter, in the mid-range game, and also while they go to the basket. So you can study it. It's pretty easy. Then you will be prepared. You will know if there's a particular motion going on, their particular movement going on. Then you'll be ready, and you'll be able to predict and be more effective. So also you got to know what throws them off balance physically and mentally. For example, there are players that don't like contact, so you play rough defense on them, and they will start complaining to the coach, complaining to the ref, start arguing with their teammates and stuff like that. You pretty much own this person. And also, that's the contact. Or mentally, it's a good old trash talk. It doesn't even have to be offensive or insulting. We're just talking about knowing how they react to words, or maybe they just maybe the best mental approach to throw someone off balance is actually not respond to them at all. Whenever they say anything to you, just be like, ignore them completely. Trust me, a lot of players, whenever they talk to you, they expect this to happen to you. I mean, they expect the answer to happen to them. But then, if there's no answer, that probably, will drive them crazy. So it's all about tactics, and you got to know what throws them off balance. You got to study those situations, how they got the tech and stuff like that. Look, 1 or 2 situations in the game where they get frustrated, angry. Maybe they will be frustrated with their offense and they will be late coming back on defense. 1 tech per game. Trust me, those moments, those possessions might affect your winning. So also the important component is the field environment. I feel that whenever we on defense, and especially those players that like to play defense, it's a different environment. You have to kind of feel that vibe and feel what's going on defense, really, because it's different from offense, obviously, because of the specifics of the movement, and you obviously without the ball, and you talk differently, you move differently, the whole rotation is different, the whole whatever's going on between you and your teammates is different than offensive play, for example. But it's it's kind of hard to explain maybe, but when you're on defense, you control different things. It's different environment. When you're on defense, you can be more vocal. You can be like as loud as you can. You definitely can set the tone by just engaging everyone, because like if no one is busy with the ball, everybody's pretty much, I mean, paying attention. At least they should be paying attention. If you can, and you as a leader, you can get everyone's attention, make sure everyone is on the same page. It's like it's easier whenever you don't have a ball. Let's be honest. Whenever you have a ball or one of the players has a ball, then someone has to do a few tasks at the same time. Few tasks. In case of defense, like for example, while you set in the defense, you can do so many things. You can prepare your team, even your body language and the way you look at the opponent. Trust me, they will feel it. Like whenever you come on offense, and if you see the whole like team, all 5 players like ready to jump you, being aggressive, being like villains, so to say, being like super aggressive and being under control at the same time, trust me, that will get into your thinking, and you start thinking, okay, what do I do next? Okay, so especially youth players, I mean young players, you got to use that, because at that moment, mentally and psychologically, players not established yet, they need some room for development, and that's when it's probably going to work even better. So you got to know, you got to feel this environment, feel this flow, how it goes, what kind of movements do you make, when do you stop, when do you pause, when do you watch, and stuff like that. it's actually pretty hard to see the ball, the player, how we have all these rules for defense. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible. It is very possible. You have to train that, and you can train that. But it's hard skill. But it also, once you get that under control, trust me, you're gonna own the defense. You're gonna control the whole environment. You will know when to rush, when to slow down, when to stop, when to just yell the proper signal to your partner, and everything will work out on its own. Or maybe you will know how to, the development of the offensive play of your opponent. You will just say the right cues at the right time, and it's going to be done. So it's very important to understand that this skill is hard, but you got to learn it. But it's also, it helps you control the environment, because the last thing you want to do is be crazy, be hectic, and not knowing where the ball is. That's what's going to throw you off balance, and you're going to move too much. Probably you're going to lose eventually your player or the ball, and you're probably going to switch mistakenly or have a wrong rotation or something like that. So you have to have everything under control. We generally don't want to rest on defense, but you got to be smart. I mean, like I just gave you an example of someone who's going crazy and not really focusing and not being present, just because they, in rush, or they're like, maybe they're nervous or something like that. That will cause you extra energy. You're going to spend more energy, and you definitely don't want to do that. You want to spend the right amount of energy. That's going to come with experience, with years, but you still can be smart about it and really know when to slow down, when to push. But that's the rule for players that already established the foundation of defense. I mean, we cannot, as a coach, say, oh, you can be smart on defense and rest. Maybe sometimes they have to be super and overactive in order to control everything, because that's probably the best scenario for them. Because if they relax, they'll probably relax too much. They're players like that. So as a coach, we have to watch that. So what do we actually do on defense? So we read the development of the play. Either it's ISO play, you got to read the tendency, a go-to move, or you read the whole play and who's going to try to get open, and who's going to attack from where and stuff like that. On defense, we try to put pressure, we try to fill the space. So as an offensive player, I have this space where I can move my body, I can move the ball. So how do we put pressure? You have to be smart about it. It's not only about like just really attacking with the body and really creating contact. I mean, it's good, but you have to master that in order not to get in the foul trouble. So you got to fill the space. You got to think about space, because the space is where the ball is going to go. So if you know how to control that space, you have a good chance of stealing that ball. Player needs the space to make a move, to use their body for the separation, or to protect the ball and stuff like that. They need space to step through, to pivot and stuff like that. You gotta know the spacing. I mean, that more of like individual spacing or like movement spacing. And then from there, you'll know how to really put pressure without getting in foul trouble. Obviously, you want to limit the options. You want to make them pick up the ball. You want to make them get rid of the ball, or maybe not even thinking about shooting, because you being at the right place at the right time. So you definitely want to limit options of the offense while you're on defense. You want to decrease their efficiency. So, for example, if there's some players that's gonna score regardless, right? We know that. So against those players, we're definitely trying to. We have this tactics when we try to make their life harder on the court, and if they still get the same amount of points, but by taking more shots, you're definitely going to cut the chances for his teammates to attack, because he took more shots. It means his teammates or her teammates didn't get the ball more, and then he still got the same number of points, which probably good successful defense in some cases against the great players. Sometimes defensive strategy can be just to slow down the player. There's some like super quick players, or just the players that like quick development. They don't like to like all this slow offense and stuff like that, or whenever the ball gets to them, they have this good ability to make quick decisions. Then you want to just slow them down a little bit. If they they quick go in a straight line, make them turn while you're pressuring the ball. It also going to steal some time out of the 24-second. you know, there's so many things that can be, you know, slowed down that will affect the whole development of the play. And without even trying to steal the ball or block the shot, just slow down. There's so many things that can be slowed down, but just the whole idea of, you know, controlling the tempo, you know, because we think about controlling the tempo on offense, for example, you can be like a fast-paced team, or you can be like run and gun, or you can play relatively slower positional offense. But on defense, you can also affect that. I mean, if you pressure the ball at the right time, if you make a stop early, you stop the fast break. Trust me, that's also, you know, slowing things down. That's very important. When we talk about actually stopping someone on defense, on ball defense, I'm not talking about block shot or steal. I'm talking about while that person dribbles the ball. We're actually talking about being ready for the contact. So I can mirror that person and do this lateral movement forever, but eventually we have to bump. So if the player goes in a certain direction, you know, I cannot take 5-6 steps parallel to him, because that's already under the basket. He's already under the basket. You know, it's pointless. So yeah, I cannot say that it has to be just, you have to stop them with one lateral step and just be in front of them and appear to be in front of them and take this bump. But the whole goal, if you want to stop someone, you gotta finish with the bump pretty much. You know, like we're talking about, like actually being there, being ready with your arms out so you won't be the foul. But, you know, that's actually pretty hard to master. But we got that's kind of like a finishing point for us. So how long should I try to contain while, you know, moving laterally? How long should I contain? That's obviously yes. Unless there's a switch is coming, or unless I push them out of the lane, or push them, for example, close to the corner, yes. But if we take the hardest situation right in the middle, everybody's spread out, how long? You know, you're definitely going to take 1, 2, maybe 3 steps, and then have your body being bumped, which means you're there, you're present. Okay, and then definitely direct the opponent your way. I'm not even talking about right now dribbling right left. I mean, that's also part of this. But for example, if I know I have a tendency and I have a good chance of blocking the shot with my right hand, then I'll probably like, if I know that I'm losing my position on defense and I'm getting beat, I'll probably make sure that I send the defender a certain way that I can chase him down, and it's going to be easier for me to turn with my right arm extending and finally blocking the shot. So that's what I'm talking about when I say know your ability. So if you just direct the opponent a particular way, besides the team tactics, when you want to, for example, send them baseline or send them to the crowd or send them to the weekend, just in a situation where you have to make tough decisions and you know you're getting beat, but you can still affect the way the offensive player is going, you better know your abilities, what you can do in this situation or in that situation, okay? So talking about position, that's an important topic, because, you know, everything starts with the defensive position. And then what is actually to stay low? Because a lot of times coaches yell, you got to stay low, you got to, you know, slap the floor and, you know, get as low as possible. I don't agree with that, just because, you know, being low doesn't mean being effective and being the fastest when it comes to lateral movement. So to me, first of all, before we even go into, like, if you have to bend at the hip or a knee, just watch your players. And if you're a player and watching this, analyze your best position where you're the quickest and you have the best or let's say strongest position. It can be different. For example, I don't have it on this particular slide and the picture, but for example, Bruce Bowen, if you remember a player like that for San Antonio Spurs, if you watch him play defense, his legs are pretty straight. I mean, there is a bend in the knee, but, you know, I mean, there is a flexion in the knee, and knees is slightly bent, but, you know, he's nowhere close to these guys on the pictures. But that's his best position for movement, and he's been pretty quick, and he reacted very, very well. He's been a, you know, great defender for that team. So, you know, what is it to stay low? We got to make it clear. So yes, just to develop muscles, just to develop different movement qualities, just to develop quality of the movement, just to develop conditioning, we got to push our players to stay low, lower, and work in that, you know, on that level as far as height. But when we teach players individually, or we in our team, we want to make everyone better defender, we probably have to apply this thinking of what is the low position for this particular player. Just watch their film, watch them practice, and you're going to see that not everyone is the fastest and the strongest and the most stable in the super low position. Okay. Then foot direction and position. So obviously, ideally, we would like to have our feet pointed forward, and we would like them to be not super wide, not super narrow, because on defense, our lateral movement is pretty wide steps, right? We take wide steps. If we stay initially super wide, then if I'm super wide, how much wider can I step? Obviously, it's going to be short step. So, for example, on this picture right here, we see this player on top. On the picture in the top, we see this player playing defense, and his feet are super wide. To me, that's super wide. Look, I'm not sure if maybe this is not the right picture. And actually, in that play, this player was pretty good and pretty fast moving on defense. But to me, that's super wide. And from here, he'll probably step just a little bit to the side in order to make that lateral step. And how much ground can he cover, and how much more space can he take in this situation? That's one thing. And also, his feet are pointed pointed out a little bit. Look, for some players, there's also an exception. Some players, they just don't ever keep their feet pointed forward, and it's more comfortable for them to move while their feet are out to the side, and that might be perfectly normal. But you have to study that to make sure if you really have to correct that. But ideally, like as a rule of thumb, we go with feet pointed forward. So from here, I think this position is not ideal. And also, talking about weight distribution here, this player has a relatively upright torso. So his torso is relatively upright, which is, it's definitely not vertical, but small lean forward. And also from here, from this angle, you can see that his feet are pointed out, and also he's on his heels. So that's what, when we on offense, we talk about, getting the defensive player on his heels or her heels, which means they drop back a little. And from that position, it's harder for them to push and change direction and actually chase you down or stop you. So in this position, to me, this player has disadvantage in his position, and we definitely want to have slight shift forward, a slight weight shift forward. We don't want to be on our toes completely, but we definitely want to feel like, there's a shift forward between the front of your foot, the forefoot, your toes, and your heel. We definitely don't want to have weight shifted back on our heels. And for that, we have to lean forward a little more. So here, Pat Bev on this picture on the bottom, his forward lean of his trunk allows him for like more balanced distribution of weight between front and back. And definitely in this position, he'll have more weight pushing through the forefoot. Also, do we push or do we slide? It's definitely, important, because we've been talking slide on defense for so long. And definitely, that's not correct term, because, when we slide, we pretty much grab in the ground, we slide it against the ground, and that's pretty much not the best step you can take. We want to push. We want to push ourselves from one side to another, and we're going to study that. And you also got to know when to sprint, because you cannot be doing lateral movement the whole time while you're trying to follow the guy with the ball. You definitely know, like if you get beat, you got to know when to sprint, to recover, to establish good position again, and then from there you will try stop the player with the ball moving laterally. And then, very important about your position, we were talking about taking space of the player, of defensive player, where they're going to move the ball with the body movement or dribbling. But you don't want to do that with losing agility. So, for example, if I'm all about just pressuring and being all over the player, and I'm pretty clean as far as movement, I don't get a lot of fouls. But at the same time, you might just lose your agility and get beat just because you're super active, and maybe that's not your strongest feature or your strongest side of your defense. So you got to really analyze that and make sure you don't lose your agility, because you want to keep playing defense no matter what you do, and and be ready that you're going to get beat and recover your position, know when to sprint and then recover your position again. So, and main idea, I described it in the previous slide, you want to stop the player eventually. You don't want to follow him by going laterally, because you can go forever if you just think about going laterally and following him and mirroring the player. So here another two good examples of a good body position. So here Kawhi has a like perfect forward lean with his trunk. That will make some shift weight towards the forefoot. And you know that's probably not the best arm position because he's reaching to the opposite side. But you know he's an exception with his defensive abilities. But his stance here is to me is close to perfect. Also, the position is not super wide and not super narrow. It's optimal. At the same time, LeBron's position is great too. But to me, I think his foot position could be maybe just a little bit narrow. But also, you know, he's exception, so maybe that doesn't apply to him. But I wanted to show you the trunk position, which is acts as a you know shifter of the weight. You know where you trunk, that's where the weight shift is going to be. So if I lean forward, I'm definitely shifting weight forward. That allows me to use my toes because I feel my toes contacting the ground. I feel them pressing against the ground. So that's very important. And which is the most important, I want to bend at the hip, not at the knee. So here's the again we're coming back to this argument and definition about how low should I stay, right? So if we lower ourselves at the hip, that's not very low in the traditional way of thinking because our knees are not bent that much, especially when we look at the LeBron's picture here. So Kawhi has a pretty good, you know, flexion at the knee, but you know, if we think about LeBron's position, yeah, he's really bent at the hip, but not very much, you know, flexion at the knee. So, you know, we definitely want to have that hip motion. And by doing this, you load your hips, load your glutes, load your hamstrings. Those muscles are very powerful, and they're going to help you move better. So we want to attack the skills. Okay, so we want to, like I said, fill the space of opponent's dribbling areas where the ball is going to hit. We want to be there. Our hand going to be there. We want to take that away. Predict the ball routes, reach properly. So whenever we want to reach, we want to know, okay, if they don't cross over, the ball is going to appear here, or if they go between the legs, the ball is going to appear here. So that's how you know where to reach and when to reach. And a lot of times, the good position to reach, the good moment to reach is when the ball is coming back to the hand. Before your hand controls it, the ball comes back, comes up. You can still hear, or somewhere down on the floor level. Block the offhand. That's one of the advanced techniques. You know, if I'm dribbling with one hand and my other hand is blocked, I obviously cannot change sides, which limits me with my motion. I either have to turn or go or keep going the same way. That's, you know, but you have to be careful with, you know, not to get fouled on this. I mean, not to cause foul. So very important aspect is the ball pass during the shooting. So if I'm, you know, if I'm a shooter and I have this particular pass, so for example, some of the shooters, they don't have the ball right on the middle, they have it a little bit to the side, and that's perfect for them. But when I contest, I probably want to be somewhere here. I'm not talking about slapping the hand or slapping the arm. I'm talking about being here because whenever I shoot, if I see my defense here, it's pretty much no contest to me. I can still release the ball. But whenever I see this shift and everything he does or she does is going to be right on this side of the ball, that is going to make me uncomfortable. Trust me. So you want to push out of position. So you don't want to make them comfortable taking the particular position on the floor, either down on the post or somewhere on the perimeter. You want to push them out of position without letting them have the body square. So whenever they catch the ball or they receive the ball or they dribble and pick up the ball, everyone wants to be square to the basket. So if we just push them out of position without fouling and then without letting them square to the basket, it's also a good idea. So we want to delay the execution, make him turn, make him play. So you don't let him go in a straight line, you make him play with the ball, but you got to be careful with gambling and reaching. Okay, so and close out, it's all about control. It's all about timing, spacing, and no extension. So basically, we want to time our closeout. We want to go at the right time. We want to have the right amount of space in order not to get beat with the first step, or in order not to be too far from the shooter. And also, we don't want to extend. We want to stay low in your position, in your optimal position, without extending. So then, if I'm getting beat, I have to get low first before I can make my first step. That's going to be too late. So here's the video of the Pat Bev on defense. Since we're running out of time, I'm only going to analyze this video. I also have another video, but we're going to go with this. So here's example. LeBron is about to pick up the ball, and Pat Bev is taking all of his free space. So you see how close he gets with the pressure. Sorry. He gets with the so he comes close. He takes all the space. So LeBron has to. Oh, sorry, I guess I have to keep going. LeBron has to turn around. He cannot square to the basket. He gets really uncomfortable in this position. So here, he knows where the ball is going to go after, between the leg dribble. He knows here where his ball is going to be after behind the back dribble. Here, it's a good example. He's, he's in the post. And here he's going to apply this pressure where he's actually tricking the offensive player. He's not playing straight. He's coming close. He's separating a little bit, then he coming close. So it's really, when I'm on the post and I'm trying to use the contact to my advantage, I'm looking for that contact. But then all of a sudden, there's no contact. I turn because I feel like there's a space to shoot, and then there's a contact again. So, I'm getting confused. I can't really apply my moves because, I cannot really read the defense. So this is what he does. Watch this. So he's pretty far. He establishes the contact, then goes back, then, so it's constant motion where he's like getting closer a little farther. I'm not saying that it was exactly in this order or with that idea, but this is what it looks like, and that's what makes the offense struggle. So we go further here. Pat Bev is about to so he's playing defense. He's about to create the bump to actually stop the player. So he's not just trying to follow. He follows, boom, there's a bump. So there's actual stoppage. Here, very good example. So you're going to see here, all he does, he actually closes the space. He fills that space with his body. He's not even trying to block shot or anything. That makes that offensive player very uncomfortable and make him lose the ball. So watch here. He just comes close. Yeah, maybe he tipped the ball, but the whole idea was just to put pressure and be there. So that player feels uncomfortable. There's no room to move. So all these defensive tricks are important. And here, you're going to watch him sending the defender. I'm not sure if he sent them on purpose, but there's definitely was a situation where he was a chaser. And when he's a chaser, he knows his body. He knows the timing. So maybe that was the strategically planned move when he could block this shot. Right timing, catching the. So if you look initially, you think that he got beat, but you realize that that was planned. So watch this. He gets beat, but then he times his block shot. He's not like just getting beat and tries to chase down and just do something about it. He's trying to use his body. He knows his abilities. So here, a couple of videos about the crossover step that helps you to reestablish your position. So here's an example. So when we dribble the ball, when this offensive player is going to turn the direction, so the player on defense will make crossover step first, then sprint, then reestablish position. Watch this. Boom. Crossover step. You see this left leg going to the right. Sprint, and then he reestablishes position. That's very important concept because every time you get beat or you're playing defense against the offensive player who goes at the full speed, you have to be ready to reestablish your position. So second video is the same example, and why I made huge point on this is because developing this crossover step and really using it on purpose is very important. So here, guys, I have a drills for the developing crossover step and lateral push instead of lateral slide in order to push yourself to the side. I will upload this later, so we won't spend any time on this, and these drills can be repeated as you wish. Also, there are more drills. So coaches, you want some defense from your players? So there are ways to motivate them, and also players. This is motivation for you why you should play defense. If you find a hard time, if you experience hard time motivating yourself, so read this. You're gonna get playing time. Whoever plays defense plays basketball. You gotta do defensive math. So every time you steal the ball, every time you help with the steal or deflect, or you deflect the ball that turns into steal and you're fast break, it might give you some points. You might score, 4, 6, maybe 8 points off of turnovers. That's already good stats. You can add your offensive game to that. You become pretty good player as far as stats. I'm not talking about be a stat chaser, but I'm talking about you do defensive math. That will motivate you. So you're definitely going to get a psychological advantage over the player that you're guarding. If you shut them down, if you stop them, if they know you there all the time, you never get tired, trust me, they're going to have a hard time psychologically playing against you. So you're definitely going to get in shape quicker. Trust me. You got to be in a great shape to play defense, but you also can develop the shape by trying and not escaping the defensive plays. Trust me. If you want a player who needs to improve your shape, you better play defense. Also, while you're playing on defense, you can show and prove your leadership skills. You can be vocal. If you're not one of those scorers or offensive players, but you're still a leader and you want to prove that, to yourself, you want to help your team by showing your leadership, you definitely can do it on defense. And you can remember, you can really change the game, because like the defense wins championships. I agree with that, but then you can change the game. Like I said, there's so many things you can affect. And, if you're a bad defender, I'm talking about badass defenders, excuse my French, you're definitely going to affect the players on opposing team, and they might be even scared of you. So while you're on the bench, you got to do study. So you got to study what you're going to do when you come out. You got to study what you can improve on defense, what opposing team does on offense that no one else on your team has stopped yet, that you can be that game changer. You can be that player who does that. So I'm trying to rush. I need like 5 more minutes. Okay, so how you can start by, developing defensive skill. You definitely want to get in shape. While you're practicing in some friendly games, even if in official games, during official games, you can guard the best player. That's one of the best ways to become a good defender. Just pick the best player, play against them, stop them. Don't just play defense. Set your goal high. Stop this player. It doesn't matter if it's a different position. Sometimes you can do it. Try it. Great defenders can guard different positions. That's one of the rules, I think, in order to be called great defenders. So you got to prepare yourself for that. Study great defensive players. You also have to do that. There are plenty of videos. There are plenty of breakdowns. Study that. You will get better. You will learn the secrets. Very important and separate topic I would like to mention is you have to study the arm movement, because it's hard to teach that. It's hard to pass that from one player to another, and it's pretty much unique to every player, because we all have different coordination, different arm length, and different skill level and experience level. So study that, because that's very important. You might find some tricks that no one else teaches, no one else sees, but some experienced players use them, and they're not going to share that. So you're better off stealing that by watching the videos and seeing what they do. And ref probably doesn't see that. It might be one of those dirty tricks, but it's okay. If it works, it works. So when we talk about mastering the defense, we talk about mastering defense. I think these skills on defense are very important, and this will be the true definition of you being master on defense. So, we use one hand as a guy without getting fouled. So when I'm talking about locking this hand, or this arm to the player, so you will know his movement. Besides watching his body, midline of the body that will predict the movement, you can also lock this hand and lock this arm that will drag you. So the body of the player will move a certain way. It will drag your hand. You will be there with him, and the other hand is mirroring the ball or playing against the pass. That's very high level skill. Learn how to use your body. Dumb in defense, I'm talking about you can pretty much persuade the player that you're playing something, weak on defense. You pretty much, have open lane or whatever. And if you can use that and run that player into the trap and actually have a block shot or steal, use that. But that's the master. You got to be on that high level. Also, you can confuse the opponent with the stance. You know how opponents attack the leg that's in front? You can always mix and match. So I can be like this. So once the ball is moved to this hand to beat this leg of mine, I can switch stance, and then I can pressure. I can switch stance again and pressure. You can trick that, but that's mastery again. you got to master the help defense. That's very important. You cannot be great defender without, and not help your teammates. It just doesn't match. Getting tight on the catch or pickup. That was one of the examples with the Pat Bev. So whenever the offensive player picks up the ball after dribble or catches the ball from the pass, then if you get tight and really fill that space and make that player uncomfortable, make him turn, or don't let him be squared, that's also a master. But you got to be careful, because at first you might get fouls for this. You don't want to get in foul trouble. You got to master that. It takes time, but if you do that, you're going to be unstoppable. And defense without the ball. It can be psychological, mental, when you talk or you just affect the player. It can be playing without the ball. So like knowing how to fight through the screens and how to push the player out of position and stuff like that. So that's the mastery. So you want to be on that level eventually. So I think that, whenever they talk about the greatest of all time, they rarely mention bad defensive players, and it's hard to persuade me otherwise. I believe this is not a quote of anyone. That's my opinion, and I think that we can agree on this. So if you're thinking about greatness, if you're thinking about being a great player, and being a great defender, you have to aim and try to be the GOAT on defense, and be the greatest player that you can be. And that also involves being great on defense. So it's all connected. So talking about greatness, you can definitely, set yourself high standard of being a great defender. So I try to do as quick as possible. And here my contacts. I'm ready for the questions.
Thank you so much, Coach. That was awesome. Really, really good stuff.
Thank you.
The first question on here is, do you teach your players how to draw a charge?
Well, yeah, you got to teach that, but I think it's also one of those higher level skills. I mean, as far as movement, body movement, how to set the position and how to fall properly and how to sell this, yeah, definitely you can start that relatively early. But talking about actual mastery of this skill, yeah, I mean, you have to make sure that the player controls the body, understands its timing and spacing. Then you can definitely teach it. You should teach it. Yes.
Awesome. And then what type of mentality? You talked a lot about the mental side of it. Do you think that you can develop that in players that are, to use a simple word, softer? Do you think that is something that can be grown through drilling and coaching, or is it more important to find players that fit the style that you want to coach?
Well, that's definitely one of the hardest things to teach. I think if you define the player as a soft player initially, and there's you realize that there's a lot of work ahead of you to do, then you probably should find I would find something that would make this player get shocked and realize what to do. So a lot of times it might be one of the aggressive approaches where you actually maybe the player gets bullied and then he gets tired of it and then he decides to bully, in return. Or maybe there's you just show exact examples of videos, or maybe look, remember this situation where this player gave up just because he got this pressure on him. You can use it all the time. So there are a few ways of teaching, either the hard way, through the body, through the legs, we say, by punishing, by putting them through this bully type situations, and hopefully that will help. I mean, you got to be careful with that. Obviously, you don't want to traumatize the player. Obviously, you don't want to make him even more soft, even softer. But then there's also conversation. I think these two are the main ways you can teach him, by talking, by explaining and showing. That way he will probably see and feel and have that aha moment. That way I think you can teach that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we have a question on here. Do you teach contesting shots with your feet on the ground or at the point of the release?
Oh, you mean the position of defensive player? If the defensive player is still on the floor, or
I think that's what they're asking. Do you basically, whenever you're closing out, do you allow your players to leave their feet to contest shots? I think is what the
okay. Well, I mean, like initially no. If I know that I'm just teaching the basics, I'd rather spend time teaching them how to stop correctly in balance and then being able to move rather than try to block shot that we probably won't block. As a first fundamental rule, I would teach that. I would spend time on that. But then once I see the player can really go different ways and can trick the opponent, or is good enough or developed enough to try to jump maybe not too high and be able to land quickly and move, then I will go for maybe allowing them and teach them, look, here you can contest the shot, no problem. You'll be able to recover in this particular case. But as in like first fundamental rule, I would definitely teach them, because I can get most out of teaching them how to not extend and staying low, staying in effective position, and being able to move. I think that's more valuable, more precious, rather than, yeah, okay, try to block, but then if you get beat, you get beat. There's no other way. So I'd rather start with that.
No, that's really good, Coach. Thank you so much. I really personally thought that was awesome, because you talked about every level. Like all great players that they have defense associated with them. If you're a role player trying to get more time, this finds a way that you kind of mesh this in with all types of levels, Coach. Again, man, we so much appreciate it. This hour went by fast.
Yeah.
You see Coach's contact information out there. Coach, we really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much, and I give you the final word for the participants.
Okay, thank you, Dustin. Thanks to Layson. Thanks to everyone who organized this event. Again, thank you guys. It's really an honor to me to speak. I got to get better at speaking a little faster so I can deliver more information. So I set the new high for me, new high standard for me. So yeah, thanks to everyone who's watching. And these are my contact information. My phone number has a WhatsApp, and then my email, obviously my 3 profiles on Instagram: my personal, my basketball profile, and my performance facility profile. I'll be happy to answer all the questions that come my way. And thank you again for this opportunity. I have fun. It was amazing 1 hour.
Thank you so much, Coach. Really appreciate it. Hopefully talk to you soon.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much, guys. You take care.